let's transfer it over a bit to people who potentially buy in on Maui, and kind of a buyer's mentality mindset. And I'll take it from the approach of, one of the downsides to living on Maui is that it is so comfortable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a big believer in discomfort. So when I first uprooted my life from Las Vegas over to Maui, it was an uncomfortable scenario for me because I've never been to Maui. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have a job. It was strictly acting in faith. I had money saved up and an exit strategy, and I did map it out. But through that discomfort, through that risk taking, the most incredible things in my life took place. As far as meeting my wife, finding my stride as which career I belonged in, getting to be more self-aware of who I am, finding a balance. But now I'm like the fighter who's sleeping in silk sheets. It's hard to get motivated, right? Because I have this beautiful son, and I just love hanging out with them. And me and my wife and the family go to the beach, and it's so much fun. So, in a way, it's almost like, all right, you got to push through this.
First world problems.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Right?
Maui problems.
Well, there's a big reason why the fighter who's poor and starving is going to be all the more hungry to go to the gym and train more often. I don't want to lose that edge.
Yes.
It's basically what it boils down to. So at Maui's just this nice warm blanket that just says, all right, I got snorkeling for you. We can go, well, we got
it's
this,
like
we got that. Yeah, calling to you.
Every morning.
And it's usually, it's rarely a problem. But I find that the older I get, the more that I obtain what I want, the more comfortable I become. And I almost want to disrupt that and become more disjointed in it, because that produces growth. A lot of pressure creates a diamond. But if you're a buyer, there's 1,000 different reasons why you'd want to buy on Maui. But let's say there's a good percentage chance that you just want some balance to the hustle and bustle of where you're at. Everyone kind of has this fantasy of owning by the ocean or having an ocean view or living on an island climate. Of course, it's an incredible place to live. What are some of the pros and cons as far as advice that you would give to a potential buyer who's kind of soft in the Maui market? Or, if you could give them one piece of advice, what would it be?
That's a very difficult question to answer, and I'll tell you why. Because it really depends.
Yeah.
And I know it seems like an easy answer to say that. Yeah. However, it's really going to depend. As we've said, in real estate, every deal is different and every person is different. So the way to figure out what that is going to be, that advice, is by asking them questions. You know that, right? I mean, it's really finding out what is their purpose, what's important to them. You were talking about how it gets difficult for you, to do different things some days in work. And the key for you and for anybody who's doing anything on Maui is, what drives you, what's going to drive you every morning, no matter what is going on in your business, what excites you, what gets you up in the morning, people call it your why. Why are you doing this every day? Well, part of it is because of what you mentioned. And if you stop doing your business, then you're not waking up in silk sheets anymore. Then you don't have the luxury to go to the beach, because then you are going to be forcing yourself into a position where you're hungry and you have to do it.
Which is a bad position to be in.
Which is a bad position to be in our industry, because, as you said, people read your energy. When you go to you go box or you work out or whatever, that's going to build your confidence. It's going to release chemicals that make you happy. I mean, everybody's going to see that. So that's a vicious cycle to get in, and you don't want to do that. So it has to be something that drives you and gets you excited. And what is that next transaction? Who is that next person that I get to help and work with? Yep. So back to the buyer, I'm going to say it depends, and I can give you some ideas of some typical things based on, or generalizations based on people we've had or worked with or clients. There are common themes that we see with buyers, which are, as you mentioned, they may live somewhere cold and they want to come here when it's cold where they live and spend some time in the warmth and bring their family and really have that be their escape and their vacation and their family time. That person may be somebody different than somebody who's looking or on a plan to move here in 3 years or, is going to move their entire life and business over here. There may be a different strategy there, and the advice or how you're going to guide somebody. Are they looking for just something for themselves? Do they care about rental income? Do they care about return on investment? Is it so you want to identify the type of property that's going to be a good fit for them, and it's really by asking questions and finding out what their one thing is, what their top priorities are, and what's most important to them. And then having the knowledge and having the experience that you have in working with other clients, you're going to be able to give them better advice. But one thing, I mean, definitely, and sometimes they don't know. So the one piece of advice I would say is to figure out what it is that they want and be as specific as possible. And if you need to take them through that process to help give them the information to make that decision, then you do that. That's the first step, right? Because you can't really give them the advice, and sometimes they don't know. So, but get to know the areas, get to know where it is that's going to serve the purpose of what they want.
I'd say along those lines, and to kind of package that is, you do have to be very introspective in your buying process, because you're probably not out here that much, and you're going to have a tough time pulling from resources that you can trust. So it really is kind of a self-reflection of what do you want, and how do you go about making sure that you're making the right decision when you don't know what you don't know. So the probably best way to counteract that is to have that kind of loyalty relationship with an agent, hopefully, or somebody that you can really trust, that treats you like family and really takes you in and asks you all the right questions. And then, all right, this is the pros and cons. Here, let's evaluate that. How does this make you feel?
Yeah.
And then really steers you to the end game, which isn't always you should buy. It could be that you shouldn't buy.
That's right.
And have comfort in, all right, this isn't for me. And that's where I think the new salesperson is really evolving. And I could be wrong. I wasn't there in the 90s or 2000s. I didn't get my license until 2010. But I'm hoping the new salesperson isn't, how can I steer them to where I want them to go? And how can I say, ask them this question. If I raise my hand a little bit higher in this question, I'll get my yes or not, But really, all right, what are you? What do you want? What do you identify as bringing you happiness? All right, well, this aligns with that, and this doesn't align with that, and this is what the reality of Maui is, and this is what the reality of ownership is. These are things you really have to think about. And then through that process, letting them organically kind of come to their own conclusion as a responsible adult, instead of just saying, just trust me. Yeah, this is, you can over leverage yourself, buy this property.
Right. No, I think that it has evolved, and I think we don't.
We're advisors now, not salespeople.
Well, and it's always about providing information, getting to know the client as much as possible, finding out what their needs are and what they want, and then helping them to make an educated decision about what's going to be the best course of action for them. And that sometimes with some people, depending on the person, the buyer that you're working with, or advice for buyers out there, it may take you. Some people it takes a month. Some people it takes a year. Some people it takes 3 years. So it's a process that you have to go through. And I think our job, or as an agent, your job is to share your expertise in terms of your market knowledge and property types, and giving them the information that they need, like to make that decision, and asking the questions. I mean, it's very much all about the plan. What is your plan? Sometimes they have one, sometimes they don't. So it is to help them figure that out. What do they want to do with the property? How long do they want to hold it? Are they looking for a return on investment? Who's going to be there? Are you going to, do you want a long-term rental? So those are the questions. Like, what is important to you about being in Maui? What excites you about being here? Exactly. Well, I love going to the beach, or I love hiking, or I just want to be on an island and not talk to anybody for, it's like, okay, well, how much space do we want around you? Exactly. Or, is it the east side? Is it the west side? So we know, and we're the experts in terms of the areas typically and what's available, and then just share them. Leasehold, that's a big question that comes up. What is that about? And sometimes actually people say, oh, leasehold, never have somebody buy leasehold. Well, sometimes it is actually a fit for somebody. Exactly. It's actually the best option. Yeah,
people have a tough time selling what they don't understand, so they write it off. But no, it can absolutely be a good fit for some people.
But I think you're right about being, working with an agent who cares and who really is looking out for their best interest and is going to provide a high level of customer service.
And it's tough because I understand the justification to not trust salespeople. So if you're going in dry, doing open house, or maybe you're walking into a real estate office, you don't know that person, what they represent, what their intentions are, and it's hard to share, who you are, what you're really looking for. You really gotta kind of dig underneath the soil on that and say, all right, this person's telling me they want to spend this, but I know, once I get to it, they're probably going to tell me they really want to spend that once they get more comfortable with you. Or they might think that they want this, but after you walk them through the process, you already kind of know, well, they're really probably going to lean more towards this, all said and done, because I can tell he's a value-based person.
Yeah.
And then they've kind of explained to me their lifestyle and, what the end game is. So you work backwards from that, help them kind of chew on that process. But I think it's so important that once you do establish, you've kind of interviewed, you walk into open houses, you shouldn't be checking out the property as much as you're interviewing that agent. Or if you walk into the office, yeah, it's great to look at flyers on the wall, but there's no baseline there. You should be interviewing those agents and then establish repertoire. If I have loyalty for my client, I'm going to work super hard for them. We're going to knock it out of the park for them. There's a lot of buyers out there who want to talk to 5, 6, 7 different agents. They're going to get set on the back burner. I'm going to give priority to the people that, understand and respect what I bring to the table.
Yeah.
So it's important that it's a partnership. We don't work for you. We're going to work together. And you need to, once we broach that kind of agency relationship, let's be open and honest. So that way you get the best property that fits your bill.
Yeah, I think it's a discovery process. I do want to, if buyers are listening to this, I would say at an open house, what you're talking about is interviewing the agent. I do think sometimes it's challenging to do that in that venue because the agent is there typically, if it's their listing or their company's listing, they're working to sell the property for the seller. So, we advise our agents and talk to them about and to let the buyers know what you really want to do is do a separate consultation and take the time because it is important. It's an important decision for you to make who's going to be working on your behalf. And so
I don't mean interview as far as like how many sales have you sold and blah, blah, blah. More just get in to really know somebody. Like, hey, what brought you to Maui? How long have you been doing this?
Yeah.
You do want to get along with the agent, of course.
Yes.
That's a big part of it. But you don't want to buy with someone just because they made you laugh and they don't know anything at the same time. So there's going to be a certain chemistry.
Yeah,
but if
you're saying that not everybody who's working an open house that you may walk into is somebody you want to be your agent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You should spend time. People spend more time searching for the best deal on their car. They do all this type of research, but then they come take a vacation, walk into an open house, and then maybe trust that first person, which isn't always wrong. That first person can be the best person for them, but the more due diligence you do on the front end, the less headache you're probably going to have in the middle of the process and at the end of the process and going forward.
Yeah.
So instead of always focusing on, you're not going to know the market as good as a seasoned agent. You're just not as a pretty much any buyer unless you've lived on Maui for a long time.
Sure. Absolutely.
So finding that kind of partnership to set you up for success is so huge. And really taking that serious. I really see a lot of value in what real estate agents bring to the table. And it can be a game changer for some buyers.
There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about the value that it, obviously we're in this business and we're biased about it, but for good reason, because we've seen a lot of deals and we've seen a lot of transactions and we know the value. And I think for the most part, people don't question that.
Yeah.
We don't see a lot of people that want to work without representation.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It's more of the, and you know what, I think we just reap what we sowed from the past, but people can walk into the open house and there's just, what they look at you, what do you want from me? And it's not, I generally just want to help you, whether you're kicking tires or I just want to get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not even don't want to buy real estate. Let's just have a conversation. Let's talk about how beautiful this island is and let's find some common ground.
Well, we love people.
Yeah, exactly.
We're in a business for a reason because we love people.
Yeah.
So
I guess you can't expect everybody else to be that type of that way. So
Yeah,
but time is money,
but no,
and they
I
want to
think
get
that's
in and out.
important. If they realize that, then maybe it's a different perspective of, well, the sales. I mean, we talk about that we don't really remember the good sales experiences or salespeople that we had because we wanted
They're not
something and we went in and it went and they did a great job for us, and you don't really think about that, but it's the bad ones, right?
That's
and
seared
that's
into your
what
brain.
people remember, and I think sometimes that people get tentative about is that concern. So I like the idea of saying out there, as far as on this podcast, that not to be fearful or kind of closed off when you go into looking at property. I mean, embrace the excitement of looking at the property and be open to building relationships with great people.
Yeah.
It's
not going to hurt, even if the agent kind of fails your test. You're going to be a little bit more knowledgeable for the next one of why you didn't like. If I'm doing showings, I even encourage buyers who say, if maybe it's from the get-go, from the curb appeal, they say, I don't still like this property, let's cross off. Let's say, no, we're going to walk through this, and you're going to keep pointing out to me what you don't like, and let's evaluate the market through it. So even a property that I know you're not going to make an offer on, there's a learning experience to be had. And same thing with an open house with an agent that you speak to, doesn't resonate with you. There's a learning experience to be had from that.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just not a good fit.
Yeah.
So taking the opportunity to interview a couple of people and figure out who is going to be the best fit for you.
Yeah.
Because it's somebody you're going to be in a fairly close relationship with, ideally indefinitely.
Yeah, exactly.
But, sometimes per transaction.
All right, we'll switch it over to sellers. And I want to touch base on a couple current events, and then we'll wrap it up. But with sellers, and again, it's going to be the same, as there's not one size fits all type of answer, but they obviously know the island. They've owned property here. Let's say they don't have agency, their agent moved off island that they purchased with, or just went south. What would be your key point of advice as far as where to start when hiring an agent
for a seller?
Yeah.
Same thing as you mentioned. I mean, really interviewing a few people, finding who is going to be the best fit for you. I think that what we find is a lot of people usually have a connection, and a referral is very strong. I mean, if somebody has a referral for you and it's somebody they've worked with and they speak very highly of, you're going to give that some weight typically. However, I think it's good to compare different types of agents and maybe some different companies to see, again, depending on the property and what the seller's goals are going to determine partially what agent and what company is going to be the best. And, the marketing, everything that's part of the plan of what you provide. But again, it goes back to asking questions in that initial interview and making sure that building the relationship and making sure that you hit the key, most important factors. I think you have to be transparent. You mentioned it before. It's really important for a seller and a buyer to be open. Because if we're going to be your advocate and we're going to be working for you, we have to. It's like an attorney defending. I mean, it's a terrible analogy, but it's the first thing that came to my mind. If an attorney is going to defend you because you're going to go to prison if you lose this trial, you want to give all the information so that you can really help them help you.
Exactly.
And so that would be probably the key point of advice is, no matter who you're talking to or how many people you're interviewing or what process you go through, it's providing as much information as you can so that you can see whether it's going to be a fit, and really then it can be tailored to what they can do to help you, because we have so many tools and resources available for our clients. You can't possibly determine which is going to be the best until you know what their plan is and what their goal is. I mean, what is our time frame? What is your plan? What are you going to do with the gain from this property? Because it's all tied together. And what I like to tell sellers and buyers to think about realtors as being part of really in their kind of financial planning spectrum. So you have your financial advisor, you have your CPA, you have maybe your attorney. Everybody should be working, your estate planning attorney, together as a team for you. Agent. And even often be communicating with each other, because they want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So I think if a seller really thinks about that person as really part of that team that's going to work in their best interest to achieve the goals that they want. A, they have to share what those goals are, and B, they have to be willing to work together as a team.
Exactly. No, perfect answer. And I think the key point of that too is just, again, it's a huge investment for you. It's a big deal. It's not as simple as throwing it on the MLS. There's going to be a lot of layers to this that you probably won't realize until you go through the escrow, and by then it's too little too late. So really just taking the due diligence on the front end of, if you don't know anybody, interview 3 agents. It's that simple. It'll give them an hour each, and you're going to kind of get a gut instinct off of that on your best approach. But to kind of grab the first person that falls in front of you, I think could end up being foolish. Hopefully it doesn't, and they do a great job for you. But interviewing 3 agents, I think, is so key. You'll get a baseline of what people offer. You'll understand who's really been proactive on bringing something to their song and dance and their stage and their persona. So it's a serious endeavor. Yeah, selling your property is a big key. You're making a life-changing event. So,
and sometimes the referral, I mean, if a friend referred you, they may have been a perfect fit for your friend.
Yeah.
But you may be a different person, and your needs may be different, and your property may be different, and maybe that agent isn't familiar with whatever type of property it is, and you want somebody who has a higher level of experience with that particular type of property. So
exactly. It's not a one-size-fits-all, and even, the most seasoned agent with all the number one in sales might not be the best fit for you versus somebody who's been in the business for a year or 2 years. So that's just something you kind of got to work through and sort through yourself. So, and
ultimately, really, who is going to? I think sellers really think about and care about who really is going to work for them, and keep their best interest in mind. And yes, our profession in general, we do that, but I think sometimes you do get a sense of that when you have to interview people and talk to them and really get a sense of who has a good plan for you and who is really going to work for you and that you can trust.
Yeah. And there's going to be so many tells during that presentation as far as, all right, this guy came, we just had a notepad, really no paper for me to touch, no comps, no marketing plan. So there's going to be so much information learned just on how they approach that one meeting. And if they drop the ball in that meeting, do you really want them to start driving the car to this for sale sign?
Yeah.
So how do they approach that, and are they very detail orientated? Are they knowledgeable, and are they present, and are they asking you as many questions as you're asking them? Are they listening?
Right.
Agents have a tendency to almost talk themselves out of a deal, so listening is a huge
common issue.
Very common issue. All right, we'll shift over to kind of a current event on Maui. And I was just at the Starbucks yesterday, and I kind of looked at the front page of the paper, and it's been on my mind. I kind of wanted to ask you about this anyway. Was I think one of the buzzwords now is homelessness. And they said that have you been to Baldwin Beach lately?
No, not lately.
So I mean, we used to go there probably last summer, and you go to Baldwin Beach, you walk off to the right by the cove, and there's that kind of, the trees and the shrub right there. I never really noticed much in the past. The last time we went about a month ago, and it was probably like a tent camp almost. I mean, they were really all kind of camping out there. Doesn't bother me per se, but we hung out all the same. But I was reading in the paper that I don't know who it is, county or what the division is on this, but they have to leave by May 2nd or May 25th or something like that. So they're getting the eviction notice, and it's just because it's become that kind of safe haven, and then the group kind of grew too big to where it's too noticeable and too much of a distraction.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've been reading in the papers a lot. I'm having a tough time really evaluating how to broach this from a county point of view, from just the community involved in the community point of view, from a resident point of view. Is there a solution in this? Does this problem continue to get worse?
Yeah.
I don't have the answer for it and I just figured maybe broach a little bit, see if you have any insight.
Yeah, this is a discussion that has continued for quite some time, and it's something that is on our agenda as part of our line items for the Government Affairs Committee. Like, we look at the topics that we want to address for the Realtors Association of Maui and get involved in, and definitely it falls under affordable housing / affordable rentals, right? And then you have part of it that falls under that, right? Then you have, there's going to be homeless regardless,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
But part of that is, I think it's at a county level, and they have to see a need to improve that. I do think that's there. I think it's on their radar, and there are people working towards creating plans. We've talked about, I mean, from the Realtor Association perspective, we deal with housing, right? So for us, we look at shelter.
Yeah.
Okay, how do we help create shelter or have a place where
without
people
a doubt,
can go?
There's not enough shelter to meet the need.
No.
At present day. Okay.
No. I mean, as far as most people are concerned, I would say no. And there are some programs. The other thing I've heard about is that there are places in other parts of the country that will actually relocate. I don't know if you've heard about this, but they'll actually pay for a one-way ticket for some of their homeless to be relocated to a place like here.
Yeah, exactly.
And so is that really solving the problem for them or really helping them? I know on Oahu, they have some programs in place where they're working at developing resources for homeless people to go to get them back into the workforce, to contact family. So I don't know how much of Maui County really has those programs in place.
Yeah.
They do tend to camp, and then they'll go in Oahu too, and then just break them up, and then they disperse for a while. But again, it doesn't solve the problem.
Yep.
So there has been a level of discussion about it. I know at the county level and also amongst the association. I can't speak more to it than that, other than I know we had a meeting, I think it was that I was involved in. It's actually probably been a couple of years that the mayor at the time was involved in. And we were talking about some potential or proposed solutions, which there were some really great ideas.
Yeah.
So Lawrence Carnicelli would be a really good person to talk to about that, because he is also, I mean, he's on our side in terms of being employed by the Realtor Association, the Government Affairs Committee chair, but he also works in conjunction a lot with the county council and knows of everything that's going on the back end. He'll also know if there's any potential or proposed laws in place to make changes. We haven't really discussed it that much recently, but it has been a topic of discussion, of course. I mean, it's a concern that everybody here has, and we want to be able to do what we can to help.
Yeah. Well, I find for myself, it's kind of, I'm reflecting on it, it's like, I want to do what I can to help, but I have no idea what help means in this scenario, in the sense that, I have so much life experience, but I really don't have any life experience with any of my friends or family going down that path of homelessness.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not personal to me. It's harder for me to empathize or walk through those shoes. I'm very empathetic, but because I'm taught to be empathetic, not because I know what that feels like to not have a roof over my head.
Right.
Right. It's still complete foreign to me. I don't know and it could be a variety of different reasons what kind of leads somebody down that path. If it's mental illness issues, is it a tragic turn of events? I'm a big believer that there's a lot of rhyme to reason, and that our life events shape us, our parents shape us, things that happen to us shape us, our decisions that we make shape us. And so are these older adults who were abandoned as children, and and then they rightfully need help, or do they not? It's just a conversation. Do they not want help? Or some people
just, they don't want to, and they don't want a house. They want to live on the beach. They like it.
They prefer that lifestyle.
I think that's a really good point, that it depends, right? Like everything else, what is the root of, if we consider it a problem, maybe they don't.
Yeah.
Certain people may not. But if it's a mental health issue, well, then that's something where we need to provide the resources to help that, or guide somebody if that's their situation. And I know there are organizations that do that. But you're right that it depends on that, because then it is a mental health issue. Is it a drug issue? If that is, then there's another way. Then that particular person or those particular people are going to probably be helped in a different way. Or is it, just kind of, in that case, rehabilitation. Obviously, the way that economics work is they're not going to be able to have a house or pay. They have to be able to. Really, I say create a job that may be a simpler solution or a simple way to say it, and that doesn't actually. It's not as easy as that. I guess is what I'm saying. It's a very
complex problem, and that's where I try to look at it from a homeless person standpoint. I try to look at it from a county planner standpoint, and then I try to look at it as a parent.
I think a county planner standpoint is a good place to look at it, because what you can do is you can take other models and compare them all about, right? Take a model and compare it. So the way we've had success, and we're looking at new integrations in our island plan. I don't know if you've heard about that, but looking at what other communities have done to create an infrastructure that is growth friendly and sustainable on an island like this. I think it's the same way for a homelessness issue or problem, is to say, our challenge is, what have other communities done that are comparable, and how have they successfully been able to change it?
Yeah, but I think what makes it even more unique is that we're surrounded by water, right? So if you go to, let's say, Cleveland, Ohio, or Las Vegas, Nevada, or even California, it's in a sad way, it kind of just gets segregated, right? You move to you be homeless in the bad part of town. There's not a huge homeless community in Beverly Hills,
right?
But with a Maui or Oahu, probably more the Kauai Maui scale is. This is all kind of special real estate, and so you have a tent camp next to $10 million properties, and just is what it is, because everything's expensive. Like, and there's no you don't want to put them in the shadows, but there's no the part of town where they can have just that dedicated resources and then kind of sprout out from there. I mean, West Maui is some of the most expensive real estate. It's just desirable real estate.
Yeah.
So how do you hedge that with other facets of it? In Las Vegas we had Northtown, and that's where they congregated, and they were safe, and they had protection, and they had churches would go down, feed them. But here it's like, we can't have you hang out at Baldwin Beach. We're going to, disperse, and they'll reaccumulate somewhere else. So I think it's a complex and unique to an island setup of homelessness. And, my heart goes out to them. I want them to have the best help. It's not paradise. So we can't build affordable housing for everybody. It's not universal income. That's just not the realities, and people are going to fall by the wayside. It's part of the problem that other places are buying them a one-way ticket to Maui, and they're being left here. Is that just kind of rumor? Yeah, okay.
That's what I've heard. I don't know. That may be part of it. I don't think that's all of it.
Yeah.
It's just one of the things that I've heard and the discussions that we've had. But yeah, I've heard that actually has happened.
So then if it grows too much, is it something where, from an ethical standpoint, could Maui do the same in reverse, buy a one-way ticket? I mean, those are huge. It's a very philosophical type of problem, a very ethical type of problem to have. It's, as much as I want to be analytical about it and say, all right, there's going to be a push come to shove.
I think what they do is they contact, like the programs, the way they're set up with their loopholes is they say, well, where do you have family?
Yeah.
And I don't know that they really verify it. And they'll say, oh, okay, well, let's see if I'm homeless and I can live anywhere. I'm going to go to Hawaii. I have family here. I have a cousin here. I have whatever. And so that's where they go. So part of it may be the person deciding to come or relocate here. But ultimately, I do think you said, maybe it's not possible to have housing. I don't know if that's true. I mean,
for everybody, housing for everybody.
Well, how many people? I don't know.
Yeah.
And if we, again, some people think that it's it's a larger issue.
But what's the trade-off? Is going to be overdevelopment, right? Which Maui County is so against, rightfully so. We don't want this, and I could be wrong, but I don't think we want it to turn into another Oahu or kind of a high density area. So you can have whatever you want to have, but it always comes at a cost. And being as the Maui development is probably one of the hardest islands to develop on, and it's very stagnant for a reason, as I think there's so much pride in the natural landscape and the slow growth that we have, that if we turn it loose because it's such a desirable place, that pretty soon we'll have more than we bargained for.
Yes and no. Okay. I think the no part is we already have the issue.
Yeah.
And how do we resolve this? And you talk about density, and one of the things we're looking to do is to allow people to take, if they already have rental potential or ohanas, or they have space to build an ohana, but it's not allowed right now, per their zoning, can they get something that allows them to do that? Because now all of a sudden they have created a rental, and we need affordable rentals. That is an area we definitely need. And I think that there's a correlation there. I don't know exactly how related that is. But if we had, more affordable rentals on the island, would we have as many homeless people? I don't know. It depends on the issue.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a way that we could help resolve some of the problem we have in terms of affordability here, because people are living here right now and they are having trouble affording it. And you have people that are born here and they don't want to have to go move somewhere else.
Yeah.
So how do we take what we already have and make it work and soften that market up a little bit? And that is one of the proposed solutions on the table. And I think it's a good one.
Yeah. It's social engineering. And I think that's the key is the people who were born here and have that history here, it needs to override even the second home market, because that's inevitably what's pushing the rents up and the real estate up, is this bombardment of international monies. And of course, I've worked hard, I'm a millionaire, I want to buy a house in the most desirable location in the world, which I believe is Maui, and with the ocean view, and that drives prices up and that drives demand. And it's not just specific to Maui, that's San Francisco, LA, New York. But there needs to be the sustained economy at the baseline. And we don't want too much gentrification. So how do you hedge the free market with the social engineering? You're not going to make everybody happy with that.
Well, the second home market and what's happened, and in terms of our tourism and where our money comes from, that's just the way it is. I mean, I don't know that that's really, you can really change that. And I don't know that we, I don't necessarily think we should.
I don't think we should too, but you could do legislation as far as raising real property taxes.
Which is also in discussion right now. I mean, I think that the fact that we have the economy we do, and it is so much attributed to what you're talking about, is, dare I say, a good thing, right? In a lot of ways, it's awesome. I mean, you have people that live here. However, the result of that is, creating this affordable housing issue that we need to work towards. So that's really where we have to spend our attention, because the other stuff is going to continue to happen. And we kind of need to mine it and regulate it and make sure that it's done in a good way or in a complementary way. But I think the focus does have to be on how do we also then make it affordable for people who want to live here that can't live here. And we spend more time working on that because, like I said, the other one is kind of the easy one. But we don't want to favor either one, because they're both really important, and we want to create a strong economy, because you have people here that live here and they say, well, it's hard for me to afford a place, but they love having the development that we have. They love having a Costco. They love having, so, and some people don't, I get it. But the majority of the people, that, in a way enhances their quality of life. I mean, because of the convenience aspect of it, and they're able to buy certain things cheaper. And I know there's a whole debate about, local versus stuff that comes from the mainland. But in reality, I mean, you look at what the consumer is doing here, and that's what they're doing. And it's not just the second home people. It's people who live here too. So it's always been a very interesting and fascinating process and a delicate balance when you look at the growth of the community here. But then you also look at it compared to other communities and how far behind we are and how much is lacking in our general infrastructure and our growth plan. And leadership on a county level. I mean, there's some great people that are in those roles and have been over the last several years, and some people that maybe have not been terribly helpful, but it's totally subjective. Right? Exactly. Totally subjective.
The nature of politics.
And it's funny because I always said, I hate politics and I never want to get involved in politics. And then I thought, well, one of the reasons that I really don't like it is A, I didn't think I could make a difference. And B, I was pretty ignorant about it and I didn't really know. And so I said, well, how do I find out more information? I'm going to go audit and go check out this government affairs committee and just see what they do. And was blown away at the first meeting to see what they had done and what they had accomplished. And really, obviously, we're the Realtors Association. So our what we look at primarily is home ownership. Right? And people that own property and ownership rights and how we can serve those people. But obviously we're part of the community as a whole. And we also have a great relationship between, what we're doing. And we want to make sure that at the same time that people who aren't necessarily homeowners, but are part of the Maui community are supported and protected. And they do an incredible job. They really do.
I find you're absolutely right. It's like, we're all critics until we kind of get behind the curtain a little bit more. And just this past year, I've been serving on the RAM board of directors, and you know that their wheels are turning, you know things are in motion, but you don't really know how well of an oiled machine things are until you kind of see behind the scenes. And then you're, wow, these are intelligent people really serving the community.
Mm-hmm.
And probably the same thing in politics. It's really easy to judge, and then you get behind the scenes, you go, all right, well, they're very complex issues.
Yes.
It's never a win-win. There's always give and take.
Yeah,
and
it's a negotiation.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like what we do in real estate with buyers and sellers. You have to, how do you make it serve both parties?
But you're being a participant now as opposed to the sidelines,
right.
Which is, if anything, that's probably the best thing that we can do. Maybe not politics or maybe not county level, but in some way, if homelessness is an issue on your heart, go out and feed homeless, like take action.
Get involved.
Get involved at some level.
Yeah, and that's an area I haven't been heavily involved in. I just know kind of what we've discussed, but there are certain ones that, I'm maybe incredibly passionate about. We talk about invasive species and some of the other things that are on our agenda. And you see the potential of what can happen there for the entire island, which, it's hard to argue that is a good thing.
Yeah.
But,
they're problems that are inevitable, but they're good problems to have because it's such a desirable place to live. Mm-hmm. So it's just a byproduct. Right. It's just going to come with the territory, and they'll be there 50 years, 100 and 200 years from now. But feel blessed, part of the lucky few, to live out here full time. And hey, it's always going to be something. So thanks so much for coming on the show today.
You're welcome,
really appreciate
Rob.
your words of wisdom, your time. And if anybody out there needs, I would encompass it as, I don't want to volunteer too much service, but if you're looking anything agency wise, or you're curious, or if you want to jump into the pool a little bit, they can come talk to you.
Yeah, as far as people that are interested in pursuing a career in real estate.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a resource for that and can help. I do talk to people every day about their, real estate career, everything from, do I even want to get into this business, to, okay, I'm in this business and now what do I need to do?
Yeah.
And how can I be successful? Yeah. So that's what we do.
Yeah. So, but I would encourage those people to know that A, they can trust you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. B, they can go in there with an open heart and say, all right, here's what I'm thinking. And the advice given back is going to be solid advice as much as can be. So
yeah, if you're not cut out for the business, I'll let you know. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Next.
I'm just kidding.
Off with his head.
Everybody has different levels of what they want to do.
Exactly.
So, but thanks, Rob. I appreciate that.